Joining us from London via Zoom for more on this is a lecturer of politics and international relations at Liverpool Hope University, Dr. Bola Adediran. Thanks for joining us on World Now. It's not confirmed really President Biden would be visiting Gaza on Wednesday. How do you see his visit impact the conflict between Israel and Gaza?
Well, first of all, I think we need to know that President Biden is traveling to Tel Aviv and to visit Benjamin Netanyahu as a show of support and solidarity. It is not only Biden who was visited Israel in recent days. We've had the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. We've had the New York governor, who is also interested in going to Israel. And we've had the German chancellor. This is just to show that Western countries are in support of Israel, and they're trying to show some form of solidarity. How much does it impact the situation on ground? I think that if current reports are anything to go by, there is an interest in creating a humanitarian corridor that would allow humanitarian provisions to reach Gazans who are fleeing the Israeli bombardment. And to the extent that Biden's visit would facilitate that, then I would think it would be helpful. Other than that, I see it more as a restatement of U.S.'s support for Israel's prosecution of the war against Hamas.
And talking about this conflict, about 600,000 Gazans have had to flee the north of, that part now to actually go to the southern part. And we understand that fuel, water, food supplies, and even electricity is really reduced. But the Israeli military denies there is any form of humanitarian crisis. What do you make of that?
Well, there is clearly a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and for the Israeli minister to deny that is to be very disingenuous. Everybody knows that Gaza, even before now, has been an open air policy, open prison situation. But over the last 10 days, since the attack on October 7 was carried out by Hamas, we've had the Israeli military, the IDF, establish an air superiority over Hamas. We've seen thousands of Gazans being killed, 1/4 of them being children. We've seen Gazan hospitals overflooded with casualties without let. We've seen that Gazans are seriously in dire straits. We've seen that individuals who are trying to flee Gaza are also being targeted in some situations. Some of them are in perilous situations. So to say that there is no humanitarian situation in Gaza is to be disingenuous and to be completely untruthful. What we also know is that there might be, in case of war crimes being committed against Gazans in Gaza, and these are the realities that the Israelis cannot deny.
Well, as it is, we know that Israel has at different times been urged to obey and follow the rules of law, or of war rather, even as it fights to defend its people against Hamas's attacks. But let's talk about this growing alliance between Russia and China. There does appear to be some form of coming together now, as opposed to what you have from the West. I mean, Western superiority. How do you see all of that? Because it does appear that these locations where these fights, where these confrontations are taking place, are just the battleground where world powers are trying to prove their mettle. What do you say?
Well, I mean, if what you are suggesting is that are we entering into a new Cold War where there is proxy wars between global superpowers, and then you have countries or territories like Palestine, Ukraine being site for those proxy wars to actually play out. I'm not so quite sure of that. I know that there is I know that there is a change in the global order. At least there is a challenge to the current liberal order, and we've seen that over the last few weeks, especially when President Putin was categorically saying that the war over Ukraine is not a war over territory as such, it's a war about principles. And that principle that I understood it was referring to is the principle about Western and the Western hegemony, so a challenge to Western hegemony. What we've seen, obviously, with Putin's visit to China, I think it's on the back of the continuing and the deepening bilateral relationship between Russia and China. And I do not want to really account for that visit. I do not want to bring a relationship between that visit and what is going on in Palestine. But I also do understand that Russia remains a significant support for Iran. So this is the angle that I would like to see this the potential of Russia getting into this conflict from. Iran's support for Russia during the war on Ukraine has been very helpful to the Russian military, especially the use of drones. And if Iran gets involved in this conflict, the question is that where does Russia stand? Especially as world leaders are trying as much as possible to manage this conflict from conflagrating from expanding beyond the current levels at which we're seeing it.
Indeed, the UN and other bodies are already calling that this shouldn't become a regional security issue, just trying to contain it so it doesn't go beyond Israel and Gaza. But we already know that there appears to be some kind of spillover already to Lebanon because the Israeli tanks are already lining up the borders. They are giving nothing to chance, right?
Absolutely. Hezbollah has always been a serious threat to the Israelis. And I think that part of the reasons why we've seen U.S. aircrafts, two U.S. aircrafts being lined up in the Mediterranean is to basically send a signal to would-be countries that may potentially want to join in this war, particularly Lebanon, particularly Iran, and telling them that, well, if you make any wrong choice or make any wrong move, the Israeli military can get involved in it. We've also seen that the 2,000 troops have been signaled in the US, being told to get ready to come into the Middle East. So there is a potential for this war, this current limited conflict between Israel and Hamas to conflagrate. But the hope is that it does not go beyond the borders of Gaza and the territories of Israel, because once it does that, then it becomes very concerning. Obviously, we've seen in the past, years before, 40 years before, where during similar conflicts where Arab countries invaded or attacked Israel. And 40 years ago, is not 2023 because the capabilities are different. Iran, Absolutely. Some people say that Iran has the capacity to break out to have can develop breakout capacity within 2 weeks. That means it's on the verge of acquiring nuclear weapons. So any kind of conflict that goes beyond the borders of Israel and Palestine at the moment would be very dangerous for the world.
So, Dr. Adediran, I'm wondering what you think would be the end, of this Israel-Gaza conflict. What would peace actually look like, and how soon do you see it manifest?
I think that the Israelis are out for blood. And in some ways, many people can sympathize with them. Unprovoked attacks against Israelis, 1,400 people were just killed, or 1,200 people were killed without any much provocation. Kids, grandmothers were taken hostage. So it is clear that Israelis are baying for blood, and they want revenge, and that is the level of anger that you can see in Israel at the moment. But the question is that how does Israel prosecute this war against Hamas? Israel is hell-bent on ensuring that Hamas is completely decapitated, and it will not stop until doing that. Now, the question is that how does Israel do that? Does it go into Gaza with a ground offensive and send its soldiers into Gaza? If it does that, there is there is concern that it will lose more soldiers. In 2014, when it invaded Gaza with its soldiers, in fact, within just a couple of hours, more than 60 soldiers were killed. So imagine if Israel is trying to occupy Gaza and to have thousands of soldiers into Gaza. It's going to be an incredibly difficult task, of course. So at the very least, what Israel is looking at is to decapitate Hamas. But what does that look like on ground is anybody's bet. It's difficult to guess. But at the end of the day, all conflicts always end with peace treaties. And so it's a question of time. Both parties will have to come to the table and find some form of agreement over the current hostilities.
Absolutely. Lecturer of Politics, International Relations at Liverpool Hope University, Dr. Bola Adediran. Thank you for talking to us on World Now.
Thank you for having me.